Good morning, folks. Can folks hear me? Great. Well, it's my privilege to be here up on the stage with two of our great state-level leaders. We have a couple elected officials with us who represent parts of the LA County area, and they've really made it their business to represent all of their districts, right? These are folks that are fighting for the most marginalized folks in their communities. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that they had the chance to get on stage and in this moment that we're in LA, tell you a little bit about how they're thinking about the path forward and how we fight for folks experiencing homelessness. So I'll start by introducing Assemblymember Bryan, who represents California's 55th Assembly District, which consists of Culver City, large parts of West and South Los Angeles. He's chair of the Committee on Natural Resources, vice chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. He's authored key legislation to support foster youth, to protect people experiencing homelessness, to remove financial barriers to family reunification, and expand economic opportunity and protect communities from oil drilling. Please welcome Assemblymember Bryan. Then I'm also joined by Senator Sasha Renée Pérez, who was elected to represent California's 25th Senate District in 2024, representing LA County's San Gabriel Valley, including the community of Altadena and parts of the Inland Empire. Senator Pérez is a champion on homelessness. While serving as the mayor of the city of Alhambra, she voted to approve over $100 million for supportive services and stable housing, and led efforts to launch a working group on Latino homelessness to explore the challenges faced by our unhoused, undocumented community. So both of you, I think, feel a connection to the issue of homelessness in a way that I think we don't always see from elected leaders. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that connection and also how it impacts how you move through the halls of power when you're in Sacramento? Maybe Assemblyman, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, Alex. Thank y'all for convening. Thank you for the work that you do every single day. Thank you for allowing us to join you today. I've never been unhoused before. I've never been houseless. But I grew up in a family that always stepped in when others needed a hand. And what I mean by that is my mother was a foster mother for 26 years. Clap it up for mama. My mother wanted to step in when poverty let families fall through the cracks, when criminalization separated children from their parents. I was one of her foster children and then adopted. She adopted 9 of us. Yes. The crazy thing, though, is when you've been touched by the child welfare system or deep poverty or the conditions that lead to the child welfare system, it's not over once you've been adopted or once you've found your foster family. And so the generational impacts of that trauma have played out in my mother's 9 adopted children. And I have 2 siblings who are currently houseless. I have a younger brother who has spent more time unhoused or incarcerated than he has spent housed. He's never been employed. And I don't think it is a moral failing of his own. I've seen the way societal structures limited opportunities. And I've seen the moments, I know the moments, I could share with you some of the moments that could have made a drastic difference in whether I'm sitting here right now or sitting unhoused myself. And it's those opportunity structures or the lack thereof that inspired me to run for office. I ran for office to build more pathways into economic opportunity, to find gainful employment for everybody, to ensure that housing remains a human right and not a privilege or some commodity that's bought and sold and traded. And that's my connection to this issue, and I'm just grateful to have colleagues like Senator Pérez who come in with the same heart and the same dedication and the same passion, and to be in a room with all of you who I can tell share those values.
I'm always so moved to hear from my colleagues, and especially Assemblymember Bryan, just hearing your story, and just value having leaders like you in the legislature that I get to serve with. Because we know that this is a tough issue, and it's not going to be any single one of us that's going to be able to resolve this. It's us doing this together, so thank you. Very much like Assemblymember Bryan, I too have seen the impacts of the homelessness crisis within my own family. About 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years now, my cousin passed away after being chronically homeless for most of his life, and passed away due to accidental fentanyl overdose. A couple of months later, I lost my aunt in the same way. And I've had many family members that have gone down that pathway. When that happened, it was a very tragic situation for my entire family. I saw the impacts that it had on my father to, lose someone that he felt like he had a responsibility to look after his brother had passed away. And even for myself, it was something that didn't just shake me, it haunted me in many ways. And after about a year of therapy and sitting down and reflecting, I decided that what I wanted to do was run for office and to be able to work on policies that could prevent something like this from happening to other people. At that time, that was in 2018, it felt as though not many folks were talking about the homelessness crisis. Not many folks were talking about the fentanyl crisis. And to be very frank, I was very angry at that point in my life, and I just wanted to do something about it. And that is when I decided to run for Alhambra City Council against an incumbent who was very conservative, and got elected there. And then after that, got appointed to the LASA Commission, where I happened to meet Alex, and we got to do some very important work together. So. This work is very personal to me. I think about the trauma that my family went through, and my goal in life is to make sure that other people don't have to go through that same pain, and making sure that we're protecting people and looking out for people and keeping in mind that these are loved ones, right? And I think sometimes we forget about that real human components of us needing to show compassion and kindness and love to one another.
Thank you both for sharing a little bit about yourselves and why it's so important to have you all up in Sacramento. Both of you, I think, had impacts of fire in your district, some of which very direct, of course, and some of which a little more indirect. What tactics do we need to be deploying? What do we need to be doing to ensure that moving forward, this recovery is centering the most vulnerable people, isn't leading to more homelessness like we've seen in many other communities after natural disasters? And maybe Senator Pérez, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So I represent, as was mentioned before, the Altadena and Pasadena area, much of the Angeles National Forest, and so the Eaton fires, if you all are familiar with the area that was impacted, that is all in my Senate district. This happened on the second day that I was in office, and so it was a very shocking event to have happen. We've never experienced something like this in the San Gabriel Valley before. Altadena is very different from some of the other communities, especially communities like the Palisades, just in terms of demographically speaking. It's a community that's very diverse, large Black and brown community, and large pockets of renters as well. And so, my mission and really my focus has been on ensuring that as we go through this process of recovery, that we center equity, that we're making sure that our generational Black and brown homeowners are being taken care of. These are folks that oftentimes did not have homeowners insurance. These are folks oftentimes that have not gone through the formalities of transferring their properties. So making sure that they're not held liable for that, they're not having to pay additional back taxes, and we're working on legislation around that. But in addition to that, also taking care of our renters, our immigrant community. Renters right now, if you've been impacted by the fires, there is very limited assistance available to you. You need to sign up for FEMA, sign up for the Small Business Administration, but I've talked with folks that are still fighting with their insurance companies trying to get rental assistance. It has been a very challenging time. The laws also aren't clear when it comes to landlords who does smoke and ash cleanup. So there's a lot of work that we have to do on the state end in order to clarify some of those policies. In addition to that, for our undocumented community, they are not eligible for any federal assistance. So you hear everybody talking about FEMA aid, about SBA grants. That is not anything that they have access to. So at the state level, what I'm working on is making it a budget priority to create a fund to assist those that are not eligible for FEMA aid, because we need to ensure that we have assistance readily available for those folks. We've been working on this every single day. We do workshops in Spanish for folks that need assistance, particularly for our immigrant community. I can tell you that people are scared for their lives right now. They're scared because you have the Trump administration that is threatening mass deportations and ICE raids, and at the same time, there's no federal aid available for them. And so they're living in their cars, scared of what is going to happen next. And we know if we don't do something to assist them, that those are individuals that are going to end up homeless. And so we really need to prioritize this as a state and keep that center focused. So this is something that I'm constantly talking about, and really, I think the way that we ensure something gets done about this is by continuing to center these conversations about equity. We saw what happened in Katrina. We've seen what's happened in Hawaii. If we're not intentional about this, about centering Black and brown communities and centering low-income communities and renters, we are the folks that are gonna lose out. And it's our job as legislators to make sure that that is not happening.
On her second day, y'all, Senator Pérez is a gift in Sacramento. One of the untold secrets that some of you may know is that not all of your legislators work together or work well together. The senator and I have made a commitment to do work together. We share values and we share a vision for the world. So thank y'all for letting us talk about how we want to do some of this work together. My district didn't experience one of the major wildfires. We had a small fire in the Inglewood oil field, the King Fire. I want to thank Supervisor Holly Mitchell. She had 3 engines out there within 30 minutes. We put it out pretty quickly, but it did knock out power in a lot of South LA. So I apologize for that if your power went out and you weren't sure exactly why. We got it back up within 36 hours. But my district is not far from the Palisades at all. In fact, it's Mar Vista, Palms, Century City, Cheviot Hills, Baldwin Hills, parts of Beverly Hills, Miracle Mile, surrounding us on our west and northern side. And what we saw immediately after the fire, like immediately, is rental postings that were previously posted on January 1st or January 5th for $3,000, $3,500 a month be taken down and reposted for $6,000 a month, $8,000 a month, $14,000 a month in some instances. I was flagged right away by Community, and by the time I saw it, Community had already tracked 1,700 listings in our district. And so the senator and I teamed up, and we introduced AB 246, a bill that would call for a freeze in our rental market from the time that these fires broke out for a full year. Because as two of the handful of renters in the state legislature, we already knew the rent is too damn high to begin with. Folks are barely holding on, working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs trying to keep a roof over their head, and the spillover effect from these wildfires is causing an overall increase in the rental market, real or unrealized. It's impacting the everyday people who are struggling. It's also messed up that you think that everyone in the Palisades is so well off that you should price gouge the hell out them in their most vulnerable moment, we're not going to let that stand. And we know, as you all know, that our houseless population is not a bunch of folks from all over the country who really wanted to see the beach. We got nice beaches, but it's not that. It is actually everyday Angelenos who are holding on by a thread, trying to keep up with the cost of living, trying to keep up with the stagnation of wages. And we know that if we push them any further, it will spill over into our streets at the very time where we are finally bringing down the curb of the increase. All other major cities were failing to make progress. In Los Angeles, you were making that progress, and we have to do all we can at the state level to ensure that that progress continues.
So I think the thing I would love to close on is you've both mentioned some really major threats to the progress, right? Whether it's cuts to federal funding, whether it's rising criminalization. I don't think anybody is more familiar with those threats and dealing with them in day-to-day as much as this room of folks. What do we need to do in the months ahead to keep up the fight, to keep making progress on homelessness and keep up the fight for folks experiencing homelessness? Senator Pérez and then Assemblymember Bryan, if you want to close us out.
Well, oh my goodness, there's legislation that I think both myself and Assemblymember Bryan are working on to address this exact issue. And as you just heard him share, this issue around price gouging, the housing crisis. I mean, this has become more exacerbated than ever before. We had 9,000 people lose their homes just in Altadena. And so you think about the impact that that has on the rental market already. It has been incredibly challenging. I'm a renter myself, and this has been some of the highest rental prices I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it has just made everything so much more challenging for our communities to navigate. I want to talk a little bit about this criminalization piece, though, and I know Alex and I, we've talked a lot about this. It has been incredibly disturbing to watch the trend of criminalization, move not just across the country, but also here in California. You have cities like the city of Fresno that are fining people $1,000 simply for living out on the streets. We had the city of Fremont just a couple of weeks ago say that they were going to start implementing fines, and this passed, to people that are aiding and abetting those that are homeless. So that could mean simply providing somebody with water or with assistance could be a fine for someone simply for trying to assist somebody and being a good Samaritan. We're working on legislation to make it so that cities and counties cannot fine people for being homeless. We have to draw the lines somewhere here in California. And, we knew after the Grants Pass decision, it was very frustrating to see some of the statements that came out after the Grants Pass decision. But you all here realize that Grants Pass basically allowed for us to criminalize poverty. It basically said that it is okay to fine people for living out on the streets. But we know that that's not a real solution to resolving homelessness. We know it actually perpetuates the cycle of homelessness. And I want to share with you all something as to why this is so personal to me as well. My cousin, when he passed away in Las Vegas in Clark County. Clark County introduced fines and jail stays for those living out on the streets the year before. And so I believe that there is a direct correlation there, right? When we pass these types of policies, people try to hide, they move inside, it leads to deaths when we pass these sorts of policies in our local cities. So, I take this very seriously. I know, Assemblymember Bryan does as well. We really need to be firm in stating that criminalizing poverty is not going to be acceptable here in the state of California. And, I'm hoping that we'll be able to pass this. I understand this is probably going to be a difficult measure that will move forward, and we're going to need all of you in this room to help us with advocating on this. But, it is the right thing to do. And it's something that is so necessary at this time, especially as we continue to see us move more conservatively on these issues.
I've got a bunch of thoughts. We could sit here and talk all day. Definitely got some legislation to help us make progress. We found that there were thousands of students in LAUSD who are unhoused, and because they're unhoused, they're unable to access the free dental and vision screenings of other students, right? Their housing status, their housing insecurity is proving to be a barrier for them to access the same quality of care that we provide to all students for free. So we have legislation that will remove that barrier and allow our unhoused students to benefit from the social safety nets that we've built for all students. We also have legislation, thank you. A couple of years ago, I tried to waive parking tickets for our brothers and sisters who lose their home and then you sleep in your car temporarily while you try to get on your feet. I know this because it's what my brother did, and I helped him buy a car, and then he got a ticket, and he couldn't pay this ticket, and then his car got towed, and then it got towed, and he couldn't afford to impound it, and then I saw him at VOA, and then I saw him in Pershing Square, and then I saw him on Skid Row. And during that entire journey, I thought to myself, man, if we could have just kept him in his car as we worked to get him back into housing, the worst part is we spend more money trying to collect these tickets than we get back. Talk about government inefficiency. It's like, when are folks gonna realize that going after poor people is the most inefficient government operation we have ever established? The last thing I'll say about this, how we continue to make progress, is we have to tell the truth. We have to be willing to fight for that truth. If you've checked out of X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it today, check back in and check in on Blue Sky and check in all these forums where we used to organize that they've purchased and taken over so they can control the narrative because they are lying about what's happening. Somehow nonprofits and community-based organizations and Medicaid became bad things. That's insanity. Now is the time where we shouldn't just be putting people over profits. We should be putting people over everything. And it's the same time that they're trying to cut this safety net, and we can't allow it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen online, and you've seen it too, we spend $100 million a year as a city to solve homelessness, and it's getting worse. Nobody says that we spend $4 billion feeding our kids school lunch, but they're still hungry. Nobody says we spend $20 billion a year on our state prisons, and we just keep sending people right back. Nobody talks about all the money we spend on incarceration and criminalization, but then they complain that crime is still high. They'll lie about that too. We spend money to help people, and people have dynamic needs. You don't solve those needs. You restructure the way government works so that it is always meeting those needs. You can't privatize that. You can't doge that. You can't erase that. You need to invest in that. That's how we make progress.
I've got nothing worthwhile to say after that. Please give some love to these two incredible leaders.